Hello, welcome back to Written with a Y. I am your host, Melanie, and these are my two lovely co-hosts, Emma and Skylar. Yay! They have already also just read MISTBORN and are gonna come here to help me discuss it. Last time we were talking about world building and plot with Skylar. We lost half of our video. So we decided to make it better than the first time, bringing amazing Emma here.
Yeah, get that third opinion.
Exactly.
It's needed, to balance out you.
Exactly, and me.
I mean, it's a great book. Praising it,
he's just like 100.
You can't praise it too much.
Thank you. That's what I was saying. Thank you, Emma. I'm glad I brought you. But before we go to the two things that we have to do today, that is themes and characters, I do want to ask you, what is your first overall out of 5 score on the book?
Probably a 4.2.
Okay, that's good. That's better. You gave it, how many did you?
4.5.
4.5. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's a medium.
4.2, maybe 4.1.
Oh.
Okay.
I do have a few things where I'm like...
I do want to know what are those. Okay, even though we already talked about world building
maybe
and
we can
plot.
tack that on at the end.
Yeah. Well, I can ask right now, before we go to themes and characters, what are your problems with what are your dislikes on the book? Why 4.1?
We've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but one of my beefs is Ellen. He's like this kind of... I don't know. He's not cheesy. He's not like to that extent, but he's not like a super well-written, like you really believe him sort of a character. Okay, that is he's a little shallow. And like not shallow in the sense of like he's vain or whatever, but like shallow in the sense of like he doesn't feel like there's enough actual scenes with him to feel like, oh, I know that you're like good. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I felt like there was a little part of me that's like, is he just stupid or like...
Yep.
And so I felt like there wasn't enough of that.
You sound like his father.
Touche. True, because he is a fool.
He is.
My problem also with this book is that I felt, and I think we already entered characters, I guess. So, starting characters. Yeah. She already gave her take in the character, Ellen, and I think that's my biggest beef also with this book. And it's...
Minneapolis.
Oh my goodness, that was great! You guys said it at the same time! Continuing after our little break. And my problem with Ellen is, at least in this book, because you all the time are, as most Branderson people, are saying like, oh, you just have to wait for the next book. Like, in the next book, you are gonna know, you have to read another book. And it's okay. I believe you.
Yeah.
But my problem is that I need to have it on this book, because this is one book and I need to read this. It's okay if he builds on following books, but at least judging just this book.
Sure.
Ellen doesn't feel like only he's a fool because he's a very well fool. Like a real character that is a fool, that I believe that exists as a fool character. I just feel like Sanderson wasn't good in portraying him.
Yeah, I mean... I think I mentioned this. I'm not sure if this was in the bit that was lost, but there was a lot of, I think, decisions Sanderson made to cut and edit down for the size of the book. And so I think characters like Ellen sort of got the axe a little bit, because he knew he'd play a much more important role in the later books. And this is almost just like a prologue to the character.
Yeah, and there is something to be said for, like, characters that have less going on in their lives, you know what I mean? You're going to write less about. So, like Vin is such an interesting character because she has so much internal dialogue going on all the time. And so it's easy to write more scenes with her than I think characters like Ellen, where it's
he didn't even have a point of view.
He doesn't have a lot of... he doesn't have a lot going on. From his point of view, things are fine and dandy, and he's just hanging out. You know what I mean? And he's like, my little philosophy brain. I'm like, sounds like some people I know, Kind of dull. I'm
not going to lie. I think Ellen's a lot of fun. I'd love to hang out with Ellen.
In this world, but maybe in a world falling to pieces literally all the time, it's kind of uncomfortable to have such a...
don't work... Well, anyways, I won't go into that. The point is, I feel like he could have been developed a little bit more than where he was. Which is like,
even if it's a prologue.
I think my biggest thing was that I wouldn't have even maybe noticed as much about Ellen if there hadn't have been the sudden development between him and Vin.
Sure.
Yes.
And, like, it felt like there was
their
like
relationship.
I knew that was gonna happen, but then it felt like because I was expecting it, it like happened a lot quicker, and it felt like a little less. It didn't feel as like well done as it could have been. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like after
the work
that you
expect to be put into building that relationship.
And she's just like, oh, I know what is happening. I love him. And I'm just like, yeah, sure, girl, you are 16. I don't think you know what loving him means.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, as again, if it would have been portrayed like, oh, Vin is just being rushing into this, and Sanderson would have portrayed like, I don't think she's right, but I felt like he was saying, yeah, she actually loved him. I think he wanted us to believe that she loved him, and I just didn't believe it.
Yeah.
So I just think that was dumb, all that thing.
Yeah.
And then, as I said already, I think I said it on the plot part, but when he just runs to the palace to save her, I'm just like, oh, come on. You have seen the girl for like 2 times. You're gonna go to the Lord Ruler with 5 pathetic men to try to save her. I'm just like...
That's the thing, is like all the surrounding stuff felt believable if he had done the actual work of building their actual relationship a lot more.
A little bit.
Like,
just a little bit more.
Yeah, just a little bit. So it's not like a huge thing, but it is something.
Yeah.
And,
no, I will give you that. I mean, I think most people reading the first book feel like Elend is a kind of a non-entity. Humorous briefly when he shows up, and then
I really like him in the first couple scenes when he was reading his book, and then when he sat with her at the table. When he sat with her at the table and he was just like reading his book, I'm like, what an interesting character. Where is he hiding? What is he?
Again,
and then there was
surrounding scenes before they got together, like the surrounding scenes of like post-relationship. Or, like, in the relationship, I suppose, and, like, pre-relationship. Mm-hmm. Before she comes to that official realization.
Yeah.
Like, those scenes seem like, oh, there's something to build on here. But it felt like we got the work on Vin's side of it and maybe not Ellen's half of it. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't as...
And I love this scene. I did love when she comes to see him and he's dining with his father. And then he comes... And he tells her, like, no, I just don't want to see you again. Like, I just don't like you. I think that was a really good scene. And I felt that there was a cool thing there that she never, like, reproached him for that. And that was a cool thing that maybe they could have brought up to create better, like, to explain what they were feeling for each other. Because there was never a moment like that. Sure. So, like, if he would have done that, that was really cool for me. I'm like, oh my goodness, he's breaking her heart. And they told him. I was like... And then there was nothing. Then I think the next time is that he comes and tries to save her, because he thinks she's with Renox in the carriage. They're gonna be killed. Yeah. How you say that name?
I said it Renault.
Yeah.
Renault.
It's like a French kind of spelling.
Renault.
Yeah.
Renault.
Yeah, Renault.
Renault. Okay, I always say Renox. Renault. Okay.
I always took it to be a French name. But...
Okay, wait. Before, this is very important. Emma, how do you say the name of the terrorisman?
Sazed?
Sazed. Yes.
I say Sazed.
Oh! Horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, well...
Sazed is okay. I don't like what you say,
I can imagine
no, I said
my
Sazed.
Parents, my British parents saying that. It just sounds British in my head. That's so. But I would say to be expected from you.
What, Sazed?
That you would say it wrong.
Thank you. No, I would say in my head I would say Zazed all the time, but Sazed works. Sazed I like, but Zazed was like, dude, that's not how English works, and I'm not even an English person.
I mean, English doesn't know how English works.
That's true. So. Okay, continuing. I think. Oh, I heard a criticism on Vin saying like she was a bland character, which I cannot disagree more. I think Vin is just, you might not like her, she's not a likable person, but that's the point. She's a very like, just weird person that is just hiding from other people and doesn't trust people, so she's not Kelsier that is all perfect and loving and lovable.
Perfect is a stretch for Kelsier.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Okay, pretend like in the sense of like friendly and just
I think Kelsier definitely lives up to like the expectations of like a character that is written well, and like you know the stereotype, you know what I mean? You know the stereotype of what he is, but he still does it really well. You know what I mean? And so like it doesn't feel like, oh, you know, disappointing. Yeah. It just feels like I knew you were gonna be this sort of character, and it's really exciting. But then yeah, Vin is not meant to be the sort of character that's like, I mean, she's definitely more relatable in a certain sense because you see her internal dialogue, but she's like also, yeah, she's a little bit more bland, but I don't think that I don't think that does bad things for the story. It was well done. I think that does good things for the story because I feel like Vin
she has a lot of growth to have.
Like I think one of her defining things is like she doesn't know who she is, and so like part of that is the unsteadiness in herself is like.
And she's not really portrayed as like an exceptionally like introspective person.
Yeah.
Like it's obviously told from her perspective, so we get the internal stuff, but she's not like self-analyzing or she has no idea how to deal with emotions or any of this stuff.
She's just being.
Yes. But
talk about that.
I think in the first it can be easy to think of her as bland, but a lot of her growth is happening subtly. It's not described.
Yeah.
I don't even think that we can describe her as bland. Like
I think it'd be a mistake too, but I can understand why people would get that
impression. Like you can be like, oh, I don't like this sort of people, this sort of person. I wouldn't be her friend. I would like being. I would love to be her friend, but I don't. I can see like those are decisions of who I like the most or who I don't like the most. But she feels real, and that's the thing. She's a round character. Yeah. Whereas Ellen, in this book at least, is very unrealistic, unbelievable in my opinion. I'm just like, I don't think you exist. Something else that another criticism I heard, and moving to another character, is Kelsier. So I heard that Kelsier, I was watching another podcast, and they were saying that Kelsier has no growth in the book. So I want to know, what is your opinion on Kelsier's growth?
If he's static or dynamic?
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons they gave for why he doesn't even grow. Which I don't know if it's a good reason, but well, the reason was like they were saying that Kelsier's plan was all the time to die. His plan never changed, and in the same way, his character never changed. Like he had his plan of dying and giving his life for everyone, and then he continued that plan till the end. And then he did that plan, and he died, and there was nothing changing in him, changing decisions of what to do and what not to do. What do you guys think?
I disagree because I don't think he's completely static. I think he's a nearly static character, but I don't think he's completely static. I just think he has, like, a lot less change than Vin does. Like, Vin is, like, part of her character is that she's unsure of herself and therefore very dynamic. Mm-hmm. And so she's literally fluctuating, like, even in the plot between different roles. Yeah. And so you see that in her character. But then, like, Kelsier is, like, much more sure of who he is, and so I think you see less change in that sense. Like, he is still who he is at the end in the sense of, like, his core identity, but I think he doesn't go completely unchanged. One, because he saves Ellen, because he knows that Vin has affection for him, so I don't think that's, like, something Kelsier would not do that at the beginning. Like, Kelsier you meet at the beginning, done. He's absolutely not about it. The other thing is, I don't even know if he's planning on dying. From the beginning.
So I think, as far as I can tell, Sanderson leaves it ambiguous.
Yeah.
At what point does Kelsier, like, switch to the martyr move, And my impression was it happens, like, roughly halfway through the year of kind of planning and plotting. Yeah. Kind of after he's had some of those discussions with Sazed and begun to realize, like... Sazed.
Continue.
And begun to realize, like, the Lord Ruler is, like, an entity that is too much. Like, something more needs done than just a rebellion. Mm-hmm. And I think that's not something he has started the plan with, like, in chapter 2 or whatever.
He didn't even know what the 11th metal was going to do, so I think he was like, I'll face him and let's see what happens. And if I have to die, then I will die. But he wanted to... I think he wanted revenge.
I think he made that decision more intentionally later on. That when he felt he was running out of time, events were scaling up, he loses the army, and he's like, I still haven't figured this metal out, but I'm going to do it anyway.
What were you going to say?
I feel like the other thing is, like, I think he, at the beginning, like, just his emotional state is different than him at the end. Mm-hmm. So, like, I think in both circumstances, like, this is the other thing. Just because he ends and starts in the same spot doesn't mean he's not a dynamic character.
And his plan can be the same and his character be changed.
Yes, I think he goes through an arc because I think at the beginning it's more like desperation and such anger. He's so angry and like
he wants revenge.
Revenge so badly that that's all he can think about, and therefore he's willing to die for that. But like by the end, he's willing to die for it, but because he's started to believe in something as well, beyond just,
and because he's loves his friends and
beyond just I hate you, and more for like, and that again I think is like exemplified in when he saves Ellen, because like why would you do that if you're just,
I don't think
like,
the Kelsier at the end of the story would have tried to sneak into the Lord Ruler's palace like he does with Vin near the start.
Yeah, and she changed him a lot. Like she would convince him of doing things that he would not do if she were not there, and she would not be the type of person she was. I don't know. I see, like, for example, you have this internal fight when he with himself when he is sitting after they lose the army, and he's sitting with the old man. And the old man was the one of the prologue, and they are talking, and he's I love that scene, and it's just like almost as a confirmation. So yes, you see a person that already was a leader. Yes, he already had a plan, but you also see him growing into what it actually meant to be this kind of leader that I said that I was gonna be. So he's very confident, but he's not really. And besides that, I think it's left ambiguous. I don't know what's gonna happen in next books, but you have the comparison between him, where we were talking, the comparison between him and the Lord Ruler. So you have like a scale of characters that are being like doubles, or are they being doubles? Are they being foils? That is like that is foil. Foil. So foil is a character that is completely the opposite to another character. So I would say like almost.
Well, it's a character that's similar enough in certain ways.
Well, that's a double. The foil is the one
that you would put them side by side, but then there's a stark contrast in a particular sense.
I think that's a double. I think that's what Dr. Howard was saying.
The doubles are like the same but different.
They're I already said that's what you just said. So the double.
I don't know.
Wait, this is I think I know because I asked my literature professor just this morning. So double is a character that is very similar. It's almost the same thing. As Carter and Sydney in Tale of Two Cities. They're so similar that they like even look alike. People would confuse them. But there's just one so they put them together so you can see this one characteristic that is different between each other. So that one characteristic shines with the character that is so similar but different in one sense or a couple senses. And then you have the foil that is like very different, but they are put next to each other, and they have maybe something similar. Like they're both men that are leaders, but they're like put with each other. The foil never changes. It's always like an static. Doesn't have a growth. The other foil character doesn't have a growth, so that you can see the difference with the character that is growing. Do you understand that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the question with Kelsier is he a double with the Lord Ruler? And I think that's a question that is asked on the book, because like you have they're reading the things on the logbook at the beginning of the chapters. You don't know it's a logbook. You don't know who's talking about. I thought all the time, well, at the beginning, it was Kelsier's thoughts at the beginning of the chapters, those little like writings, because it was so similar to what Kelsier was going through. He was like, he was becoming this hero, saving these people, and he was becoming very prideful little by little. And then, but it was actually the Lord Ruler. But no, it was actually the hero of ages or whatever. Yeah. Have this contrast with Kelsier, and then the Lord Ruler, and then the hero also in the middle. And I think the question is, the book is asking, and that's why I think Kelsier is growing or changing or can change, and he has the potentiality of changing, is he going to become as this man that started good and started being more prideful? So I think the question is he a foil? Like, is the Lord Ruler a foil character to Kelsier? Like, they're completely different, or is he a double? And I think that is asked in the book, and that makes Kelsier actually a character that has a growth or a fight, at least, of maintaining his true identity.
Yeah. And I think as well, because obviously with the Rashek and the hero, there's sort of two sort of extremes that I think Kelsier could end up as. And so I think it's an interesting dynamic where he's sort of like both double and foil to each character. Like he starts off as just the common, kind of guy like the hero does. He sort of feels this burden, this power is suddenly thrust upon him, and so he sets out on this mission, very much hero. but he's so full of hate. He loathes the nobles, just like Rashek loathed the heroes people, the Kaleni, or whatever. And so Kelsey is like stuck right in between them. Mm-hmm. And so you I don't think you sense it immediately. Certainly not like till more the end part, right before you kind of learn who the Lord Ruler actually is. But I think that's why there's so much tension of like, oh my goodness,
what's
like
gonna happen with him?
Like,
and then the other characters, the other characters are like, he's too prideful. He's trying to create a name for himself.
Wait, go back. Yeah, remind me, because this has been a while since I read this.
Okay.
Rashek is the one.
It only says that Rashek takes his place. So the Hero of Ages was going to the Well of Ascension.
Yes.
To get the power.
Rashek is the terrorist
and then Rashek is a terrorist man that was with him, but then betrays him and actually takes the power. But we don't know what happened with the Hero of Ages. We just know that he's not the one who becomes the Lord Ruler.
Ends, and then you find out, Rashek is the Lord Ruler.
Yeah, now that I'm reading the second book, I'm just like, okay, what happened?
Yeah, and it's been a while since I read the first one, so now I'm like going back from the second book, and I'm like, wait, who is this person again?
What is happening? And this is, like, to everyone that is watching, like, I encourage to actually continue the other book, even though I literally criticize Skylar for using the next book, you'll see. It's really actually true that there are a lot of criticisms that I'm giving now that even though I still like keep them, and I think he could have done better in the book with those, they are going to become better in the other books. Like, it's going to be solved. I was watching again this video of 2 hours, people destroying MISTBORN, and I was sympathetic with a lot of things they said, but I was just like, oh, you are saying that because you have not read the second book! Literally, a lot of their comments are answered on a second book,
which is also, like, there is something to be said for, like, the author choosing to do that, you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a certain sense in which I could rate it a 5 out of 5, simply because, like, it gets you to want to read the next book. Yeah. So it does its job super well. Yeah. It doesn't answer every question that you need because it's not a standalone novel. It's got 2, 3... you know what I mean, books, and then, like, even more, because he added, like, in-between stories or whatever now. But, the thing is, like, it's not a standalone, so it's okay for there to be unanswered things, because it leaves you wanting something.
And I would add to that, undeveloped characters.
Yeah.
Like, minor spoiler, Spook turns out to be one of my favorite characters throughout the entire series. But he really is, like, a non-entity in the first book. He does nothing, like, actually productive himself. And just vaguely...
I'm actually really liking Spook. I'm actually liking Spook. Yeah, and then you like more other characters. I think I'm liking more Vin. I'm liking more Zayzit. I'm liking more Ellen.
Because they are getting much more depth each time. Yeah. And, like, the first book also, it has the job of not only giving you characters and character development and all that, but it also has to give you plot, it also has to give you world building, which takes time. It does just take time, especially in a world that's, like, complex and detailed. And that part of it, like, is done so well. And it's that, like, that part of it, I don't know. I just think it does it so well that you can't complain about it being, like, a horrible book, especially if you have access to the next few books, you know what I mean? So, like, if you hadn't read the second book or the third book or whatever, like, I see why you're complaining, but also, like, it's not a standalone, so you know there's something else coming. So. And
something that you said yesterday in the other video was helpful, that that you have, it's like saying that The Hobbit is just doesn't explore enough of the elves and all these other characters, and it only stays with the hobbits and this small world, and it doesn't go deeper enough. And that's another criticism that these books sometimes have received. It's just like this medieval world that just have magic with the metals, and there's nothing else. Well, there's nothing else yet.
But there's so many little things that it opens up to. Like, for example, religion. Like, that is a hugely, like, like, that, one, gives depth to the world, but two, it also, like, it's such a huge, broad subject area that, like, you can really take it anywhere. So, like, you can have some faith that, like, the author is going to draw that out probably throughout the time, especially because, like, the ambiguity surrounding it, like, there's a lot mentioned about religion, but there's not much, like, actually detailed hardcore, like, this is exactly what's happening, taking place with these people, you know, like, that's not happening. And so, like, that, like, little...
Especially when you go to the next... Yeah, exactly. And when you come to the next book... you see some things that are added, and it just seems fitting. It's not like, oh, and let's put this, and let's put this, because these books made it so well that I know there was things hiding in the back that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
And then when in other books these things come, it's not like, wait a minute, what is this Kandra doing? Well, the Kandra that is how actually happens in this book, this type of being, when it comes, it's not like, oh, you just came up with that, you just like tried to like create something right at the end. And it's just like there was space for it to come. And then on the other book, every time like things are added, a bunch of things are being added, but it doesn't feel like, oh, now I'm creating this what's the name, Frankenstein. And just like it's like, oh, it is actually coherent with the world that we already saw. It
feels like just more of the same thing being revealed to you.
Yeah.
Which is like, it feels very believable, and it feels very congruent with the rest of the story. And I appreciate that about the book. In that way, 5 out of 5.
Okay, but we were talking about characters. So what is the one thing? Before I was gonna ask what is your overall score on the characters, but I will give one thing that I did not like about one of the characters, that I think you do like it, Skylar, and is the Lord Ruler. I felt a little bit, I felt him a little bit at the end. He just became too man for me. Too like, he just was like this amazing thing, and then all of a sudden he's nothing. And I just feel like a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion. I just feel as in like he was just like this wall thing that is ruling for 1,000 years.
The hype was too much for the
yes, and then all of a sudden it's this man.
You see, I think that was very intentional.
I know you like that.
I feel like by this point something is weird with Vin, because you're like, girl is like not normal. Do you know what I mean? Like, how in the world did she pull this off? Like, that's what my brain is thinking, right? So like, in some ways it justifies actually them accomplishing it, and it gives me like a satisfying ending, because like, I don't know how they would have pulled that off if he was really as big as they all say. But the other thing is, like, I also think there's a cynical part of me that, like, never believes he's as big as they say he is. You know what I mean? Like, I think, like, the hype is, like, oh, you know what I mean? And, like, it really needs to work against the cynical part of me, which is, like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Like, when you were reading the book, you were like, I think they're hyping him up more than he actually is. And then when it got to be that,
was so
you weren't
strong.
Surprised.
It was so strong, it made me think something's not right. Something is more than meets the eye here. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And so I think in that way it was fitting.
I believe them. That's the problem. I wasn't cynical. I was like, oh my goodness, the Lord Ruler.
Yeah. Well, I was like, the Lord Ruler is the big bad. You know what I mean? But he can't possibly, like, how did he get into that position? You know what I mean? Like, there has to be some beginning to this, because it wasn't always this, and there's memories of things not always being like this. So, like, to some level, my little cynical brain was like, he's gotten into this place somehow,
okay.
But he can't really be like that much. You know what I mean? Like, something about him is not.
You're just smarter than me.
And I feel like the ending was like fitting in that way, because it felt like he is really dangerous and he is really hard to like figure out and things like that. And they had to sacrifice a lot to get to the point where they did. Do you know what I mean? Like, they really had to sacrifice a lot. So it's
but
not
then they
like,
got there, and it's just like, hi, you little man. But it's okay. I did find really cool, really, really cool when Bean pulled the bracelets out of his body. I think that was crazy.
So,
I liked it.
Let's see if I can do this without spoiling. There's a very interesting dynamic where the Lord Ruler is both. He does, in one level, have a mythological level of power compared to everyone else, right? I mean, the fact he can soothe, like, the entire city at once is, like...
Yeah,
it's bizarre,
it's like,
right?
oh, that's crazy.
It shouldn't be able to happen. But at the same point in time, we've had that hint of the 11th metal. It's like, oh, there's a weakness. There's one little spot, like, you know, Smog's one scale that's weak, you know? And so it creates this interesting dynamic where there is great power, but also a vulnerability, and so it's like, it changes it from just like this sort of raw power struggle to like, can they figure it out before he massacres everyone? So it becomes almost more like a race rather than a fight.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah, and I think
creates and allows him to be humanized as well.
Yes.
He's just an immensely powerful man, but he still has to walk across the room. He doesn't have eyes on the back of his head. You know, it's like these weird limitations despite his massive power.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, I think part of what clued me into being a little more cynical about his character, maybe, is the fact that he has to have, like, a run religion surrounding himself. Like, tyrants do that in order to maintain control over the people because they are just human. Yeah. But, like, they do that in order to, like, deify themselves in people's brains, and then they're, like, they're larger than life, and so they, even if they can be killed, people don't feel like they can be killed because they've been tricked into believing that he's larger than something they could even dream of.
The Lord Ruler as a character, though, is I think I've always loved him as a villain because he is that. He is the weak tyrant that's trying to protect himself. Yeah. And yet he also isn't at the same time. Like, Vin is right to say, oh, he could kill everyone in the city. Yeah. And, like, he actually has that power within himself. Yeah. And so it's this really interesting tension because both of those statements are true. Like, as soon as those rings come out, he instantly dies, basically. Yeah. All of his power's gone. Yeah. But if that doesn't happen, he cannot be killed. It is. It is a lot like, are you smart enough to figure it out? And it does feel like a desperate, lucky grab, honestly. Yes. Like, that's the other thing is, like, so partway through the book, I was like, they're definitely gonna do it. Like, this is the plot line of this book. They're not getting out of it. Like, there was some part of me that...
I remember Justice asked me, one of our classmates, she was like, Melanie, you don't have to give me any spoiler, but please just tell me if they defeat the Lord Ruler in this book. Because I cannot believe they're gonna keep dragging this for 3 books. And I'm just like, that's a big spoiler, Justice, if I tell you. No, I know. And she said, yeah, but I just cannot read 3 books where they still are planning to kill the Lord Ruler. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Read it. You'll be satisfied. Yes. What are you gonna say?
I do think, that's the other thing is, like, there's something about the book where you're like, okay, it's happening. Make it or break it. You know what I mean? Like, it has to happen or they're all gonna die at the end of this book. That's how it starts getting. And I think because it starts getting like that, there's, like, maybe it's a hopeful part of me, I don't know. But I'm like, I'm on the side of Vin and Kelsier because you want to be, because you're supposed to be, because that's what happens when you read books like this. So you're like, you want them to win, obviously, but you hope against hope that, like, something about this lore has to, like, there's got to be some little crack in the armor, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that, like, hoping against hope, like, you don't realize what you're gonna have to sacrifice, Kelsier, to get there. But
oh my goodness, I'm still traumatized with this.
You don't realize
his image of his half face gone and his smile is just forever in my brain.
Stop. Okay, anyways, it's not even that soon, but it might be for me. Yes, but the point is, it's like there's like this little like chink in the armor where you're like, I really want them to do this, and you don't realize like what it's gonna take to do it, but they still do it anyways. And so like it's both satisfying in the sense of like it does humanize him to a level, you know what I mean? But it didn't make him so accessible that it felt like we didn't lose anything along the way, and it was just happy-go-lucky and like we're the main characters, so we have plot armor. You know what I mean? Like that's not what is happening in this book.
Sanderson is a masterclass on that final confrontation. Yeah. I mean, he does this in all of his books, but so often you read a story and you're like, well, the hero won, I guess. Yeah. Probably shouldn't have, but that's expected.
But then you know he hasn't won. They haven't not won because there's still something. There's still this deepness. What was the deepness? What was happening? And why did the Lord Ruler in his death says you are ruined? Like you were alive because of me, and it's just like so you know it's not. It's defeated, but it's not defeated. What is gonna happen? So that's really cool. Now I'm gonna stop character there, and I'm gonna ask, what is your overall score on characters?
On characters,
out of 5.
I feel like in this book, it's definitely a solid 4.
Okay, that's good.
I feel like it's less. Well, actually, it 3.98. To be real specific.
3.98. Okay, why makes you think that like 0.02?
Here's my deal. Is like I like the plot and the world and the
but it's on characters. Like...
And the flow of the novel maybe is what I should say, more than I like the characters. But I do feel like there was like less to deliver on the characters than I wished. Sure. Well, okay, so like for example, I think Kelsier and Sazed were my favorite characters. Yeah. And I think the main characters would appear more like, or like even, what's his name, Marsh?
Yeah.
Like, I liked really Marsh more, you know what I mean? And Doc, you know what I mean? Like, I felt like there was very different dynamics with each of those that I felt like, okay, these are, like, deep characters, you know what I mean? Even though they're
I honestly, like, disagree with the part of Doc. Like, Doc, Ham, and Breeze, I didn't know who was doing what for, like, more than 70% of the book. Because, like, for me, they were just, three people in the back. And then I started, like, especially because of their powers, like their allomancy powers, I started distinguishing them from the other ones, but I just feel that they were just, like, plain. They were just back there. I feel like
towards the end I started really having, like, distinguishing. Yeah. I feel like in the moment of meeting them is not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about generally throughout the book, like, my overall feeling takeaway from each of the characters. Kelsier feels like a character who I felt like delivered really well on, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like very much like he had change, but not too much change, and he was very, like, married to his cause and had the proper plot arc, you know what I mean? Like, or character arc or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I felt like if he doesn't die in this novel, I'm concerned he's gonna become the bad guy. You know what I mean? Like, they have to kill him now or else he's gonna go crazy. Because he was
That's another question. I don't know.
He was getting prideful. He was
getting prideful, but this is the thing.
Deifying yourself?
Yeah, I know, but he had a purpose for that. I think it was dangerous. This is my only problem with Kelsier dying. We're still in the characters, but it's okay. This is my only problem with Kelsier dying. I wanted to see more of him. Because in this book, I didn't feel him as, like, second, almost first character. I feel that Vin was that co-first character, and Kelsier was the main character, and then he dies 70 pages before the book is over, and then I just wanted to see what was gonna happen with the deification.
Yeah,
I just was expecting more of that, and it was disappointed when I didn't get. Like, I didn't want him to die, and that's why he didn't become evil. I wanted to see what was going to happen if he tried to become evil, and how he was going to fight this impulse of becoming evil and not becoming evil. So, I actually missed that.
There was a point in the book where I was like, oh, Vin's going to have to kill Kelsier at the end.
What?
And,
I remember being suspicious of that.
Because here's the drama.
I didn't think that.
Here's the drama. So what made me think that was this same thing of, like, thinking, I almost want Kelsier to fulfill this, like, bad thing that he was doing to himself.
To actually beat the Lord Ruler.
I wanted him to defeat himself.
Like, have to be one of those moments where Vin, like, realizes, like, you've turned and lost sight of something important. And have to kill him. I was like, maybe this is Vin's huge character development.
Kelsier needed to die there, or that Sanderson's choice to have Kelsier die before usurping the Lord Ruler, kind of falling to evil, however it could have been played out, was actually a far better plot decision on Sanderson's part than otherwise. I feel like it's pretty easy to get suspicious of Kelsier.
To have him, like, being evil, him being evil, and Kelsier, and Vin having to kill Kelsier.
I'd be tempted to say Sanderson did that intentionally. I mean, we have that, like, intervention scene where the crew get together on, like, Kelsier, what's going on? You're going a bit crazy. This is weird. And so it's sort of, we're almost spoon-fed, like, concern and suspicion about Kelsier's motives and, like, where things are going to end up, particularly in light of, like, oh, is he going to, go the Rashek, decision and end up becoming another Lord Ruler? So that could have been the plot of the book, with Vin potentially having to kill Kelsier. But I think actually having him kind of commit to the martyrdom moment and have that climatic point be such a surprise where Kelsier is just killed actually serves as a much better plot twist and works a lot better for Vin's character development as well.
I agree, but I still wanted to see how he was going to deal with the fact that with everything that he was carrying. Yes, cool, he dies. I think it was an amazing plot twist. I cried so much. I don't know if I'm well with it yet, but still, it surprised me. It was more than I was expecting, and I think it did its job. But I wanted to see, even more than I wanted to see what the Lord Ruler was gonna do with him, like even more than I wanted to see his fight with the Lord Ruler, I wanted to see his fight with himself, and I felt that there was not enough time that Sanderson, yeah, summarized. Sanderson didn't put him up against himself enough.
Sure.
To have that, yeah, he had the sacrifice moment, but I would have wanted to see that.
Thinking about like how he's deifying himself quite.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about it too.
Yeah. So then maybe I didn't feel like it was maybe as rushed.
I don't know. I don't think it was rushed. No. The deifying himself was not rushed. I loved how it was developed in the book. It was so well developed that when the other characters start being like, he's being prideful, and I'm just like, oh yeah, he's being prideful. Oh my goodness, he's gonna be. I literally texted you like, I think if left alone, Kelsier can become another Lord Ruler, and I think it was great. I don't think it was a rush whatsoever. His development into, or the danger growing in him of being too prideful and too more like, I'm a god. Mm-hmm. He literally says it. Like he started telling people, like, just for the cause, yes, but he's saying it to the people. What I didn't like was that there was not enough time to resolve that issue. So there was a lot of growth of the problem, and then boom, his death.
Yeah, okay, that is kind of fair. But I also feel like, yes, but I think it was on purpose, and I think it was a good choice, because I think the only two options were, I think the resolving of the problem would not have looked pretty. I think that's the route.
It's okay. So
I think the two routes to resolving that problem is either he dies before he can get to the point where he starts making bad decisions, or Vin has to kill him.
Oh no, Vin, kill him. No, she can help him. It's different as he helped her.
That's way too optimistic, though.
No, there's no way to. Oh my goodness, Emma.
Think about Vin's character.
He's great.
She's not gonna help him.
Yeah, she can
barely help herself.
No, but she has helped him already. That's the thing. You can see how she has helped him. In the letter, he's just like, "I will tell Mare about you." And
she always wanted it.
Yeah, she always wanted a girl.
Okay, yeah, actually, I did really cry at that.
But you see, his heart was sweet in that moment. Yeah. So I feel like he's not a Lord Ruler. He could be, and I love the fact that Sanderson is saying like there's potential for all of us to fall and be corrupted, and this great man that is actually helping everyone as this hero that actually was not, but we thought. Was corrupted, or this terrorist man that was probably good. Rashek, I don't think Rashek was evil at the beginning, but he just was corrupted at the end. This can happen to your amazing Kelsier, and I love that, but I still would have loved to see him being a little bit corrupted, a little bit more corrupted, and then how he would face that and how he would not become that
maybe
thing.
I just love the adrenaline rush of
I think I loved it too.
Maybe.
I love like internal character dilemmas and struggles. And, that's kind of I think you value a lot of plot happening internally. Yes. Whereas I know I certainly, and it sounds like you as well.
I think we just value the external
what's happening in the real world.
Yeah.
I also do value the I won't dismiss completely her argument. I do understand
submitting the entire plot under.
I mean, I'm not saying the entire thing. This is why I think now that I know the position that Kelsier actually had, then now I understand it more. Because I thought Kelsier was more a main character than he actually was. He was a main character of this book, but Vin is the character. She is the one in the cover. So like she is our main character. But I was giving Kelsier a bigger role that he had. That's why I was so surprised when he died.
Okay. Yeah.
And when his development wasn't longer, because I was waiting for him to be developed on other books, like these things this corruption that was growing in his heart. I was just like, okay, as long as it took for the corruption to grow, then we're going also to have a long time for the corruption to be faced. Yeah. But then when I realized, actually, Kelsier was not my main character, then I can understand and sympathize more with that more rapid conclusion to his problems. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We agree?
Yeah,
okay, cool. Okay, we have to leave characters. I think we...
Okay, side note. Just randomly.
Yeah.
Mare is also one of those side characters that I feel like I really wanted to know what the heck is going on with that freaking betrayal. But no one will tell me.
Was there a betrayal? That's the question. But the good thing about this book, I think, and with Kelsier not being the main character, I was just like convinced of this. even characters that are not in the play, that are not in the book, you feel them so real that you could go and get a book of them, and you'll be happy to read it.
Yeah, that's
it's just a master thing
to
do.
That's, I think, another reason I felt like Kelsier was such a what's it called?
A rich, deep character.
Yeah, a rich, deep character is because he had a whole other life before this.
Yeah,
and it's crazy to think about that, and then you're like, oh my gosh, we didn't even hold on. Wait, back there. Wait. And you're like, oh, no one told me.
Tell me that story.
Yeah. You're like, wait, but this.
And they're in the prison, and you're like, oh, cool, the prison. And then it's like, wait. The back is like the past is also cool.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, just saying the scores on the characters.
Yeah.
I think that was deleted, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so my score on the characters is 4.5. Which for the first time I think I agree with Skylar. That is also 4.5.
Yep.
Okay, we can agree on something.
I rated
Great.
them slightly lower.
We take so long. We talk so much.
Too much.
Last bit is themes. And my favorite theme, my favorite theme on this book is remembrance and beauty on things. Yeah. I have been studying that a lot lately, but I love how it was. Compared to Lord of the Rings, I was just telling you this yesterday, but compared to Lord of the Rings, where I literally had just the notes that I had were making the book fat on here because there were so many how you call those
sticky
the
notes.
sticky notes that it would not let the book close. Because they were in every single page. And now it's not highlighted because now everything is highlighted, so nothing is highlighted. Because there are so many themes in Lord of the Rings. It's so deep. Everything they say, everything connects to everything. And there's just, you can just write books and
everywhere.
books and books of themes.
It's like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah, you just pick, but it's so much that sometimes you don't know what to pick. So writing a paper for it is hard, but it's easy, but it's hard. But this one is not like that. This one is not like that. It doesn't have that many themes. It has just a couple of themes. But my favorite, that it's definitely a main theme in this book, is remembrance. And you see how Kelsier is given since the beginning of the book, when people, they don't know what they can be. They don't remember what used to be. And that's what the Lord Ruler was doing. He was destroying their memories of religion and culture and color so that they would not want something else. They didn't know it was possible. And you have Kelsier with the picture that he had of that mayor had of a flower. And Bean was like, oh, they can have colors? And it's just yeah, they can have colors. Yeah. And it's sweet, but it's it's... And I just highlight it every time. It was remembrance, and beauty. It's sweet, but it's also sad being in this world that is so gray, and there's no beauty, and there's nothing that makes you hope for something better and for being developed as a human. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I love the fact that in this, that ugliness, it's not just in a lot of dystopian, 1984, it's all dreary and dark, and, the Big Brother's always watching. You feel oppressiveness, but with Sanderson, he's actually built it into the world. The ugliness, the ash, the red sun is killing the plants. They struggle to have enough food because of the exact same reason that there's no beauty anymore. It's interwoven into his world. In
a criticism, a guy said, this is a book that was written as if an artist was trying to paint a painting, but he didn't. He only had 2 colors, and he was saying that's a bad thing, and I'm just well, that's a bad thing, and I think Sanderson thinks it's a bad thing.
Yeah,
that's the point.
The point.
The point is that the art. Thank you for noticing that, because that's the whole idea. Is that there were not enough colors.
You're so step shy.
Yeah. That's the point. But yeah, I think it's great. I really like also the difference between utilitarianism. Is how you say
utilitarianism.
Yeah. Utilitarianism.
I appreciate
with just the beauty of things, because you have Bean that is, when she started going to these balls, she's just oh, why do they have these windows, and why do they wear these dresses? And then she starts just but then she starts enjoying these things, and you can see the reason why beauty is important, even if it's not, you cannot use it as
Yeah, I think that is something that is, like, one of the most underrated themes in the book. Yeah. I loved that part of it. That part was, like, this is part of the, like, outside of the character that I loved that was going on. Yeah. I felt like there was a clear distinction between, like, beautiful things and ugly things, and I feel like Sanderson has a clear idea of what is what. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there are some novels that you read, and, like, they try to make you think that something that is not beautiful is beautiful, and they try to, like, convince you into it, like, coax you into it, you know what I mean? Yes. And you feel like, yeah, it's, like, kind of cool, but it's, like, you know, you're like, I'm not fully convinced that this is really all that nice, you know what I mean? Like, that, it sounds cool in a novel, but, like, it wouldn't be that beautiful to actually live in that, and I think it's what makes the world actually even realer to me, at least, because it's like, how do people exist like this, you know what I mean? Like, well, because the nobility are able to exist around beautiful things, and that's how they cope with this situation. Yep. Like, that's how they're appeased, because otherwise they would overthrow the Lord Ruler or something, you know what I mean? Like, certainly try. Yeah, or certainly try, at least, like, they would try and figure something out, because, like, if they had to live the same way the Ska did, they would be like, no way. Yeah. And I think Vin is, to go back to your point, I think it's really important that Vin recognizes that it's not wrong to love something that's beautiful. Yeah, and, even, like, if it's not. That is not done in so many things today. I feel like because it's, like, associated with nobility, because it's associated with, like, the things that are, like, excessive. A waste, that it's, like, inherently evil, and it's like, no, that's not inherently evil. It is good to love beautiful things. How you handle the resources and everything else, and, like, there's a priority to things for sure, you know what I mean? But I think beauty is, like, something that, like, causes people to flourish, and, like, I think in that same way you see, like, this is the 1 point for Vin, she, like, she begins to flourish more in a more beautiful environment, like, when things feel a slight, like there's a bit more hope in them almost, you know what I mean? Like, she starts living like there's a bit more hope in it, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I don't know.
Sanderson nuances it, right? You know, she walks outside of one of the balls and watches a god slit a boy's throat. Like, a handful of feet away from the beautifully illuminated stones and the walls, and so it takes her a long time to realize that yes, it's okay to enjoy beauty, and there's a lot of good in beauty, but it can also be used to hide evil, right? Yeah. And so that's, I think, a tension that she has to kind of work through.
And a priority of things as well, right? Yes. Because, like, beauty is, like, a really high good. Like, out of all the goods that you can desire in the world, it's definitely up there. But human life, human flourishing is, like, before that.
Beauty is good because it helps human flourishing. If you're killing humans, then it doesn't matter if you have beautiful stuff.
Well, then it doesn't matter if you have beautiful things, because the beautiful things are for the purpose of being enjoyed.
It
makes them seem
the ugly
fake,
moral,
which is almost,
tarnishes the beauty.
Yeah, which it doesn't just make them ugly, it makes them feel fake, which is, like, even worse than being ugly almost, because at least ugly, it's like, this is what it is, but if it's a beautiful thing that's, like, hiding or masquerading almost, you know what I mean, as something that's actually really horrible and dark, it's like, ugh.
But at least you have this tension, so it's interesting, as you said, that nuance that Sanderson makes, because it's like, okay, I have this Vin that thinks everything that is not useful for me in this moment is a waste, and these noble people are terrible. What Kelsey has actually thought about them, they're just horrible people. They have nothing good, and all this, like, thing that they're being pampered with. It's just bad.
Scented baths? What?
Yeah, exactly. But then you got Bean that gets in here, and she's like, actually, this is giving me hope and giving me reasons to live and wanting to live. Yeah. And this is, everyone is not that bad. But then she goes out and she sees this boy being killed just because he was asking for money. So you have that tension. I don't think that was put there, that scene, to disregard the beauty as a good thing. It was just to show, but there's something else about beauty. Yeah. It's not only beauty by itself. You need to have good morality.
It's a more complex issue than just, like, hate it because it's associated with something else. You know what I mean? Like, it's more complex than that, both ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And one last theme before we do, like, a 5-hour video. Is friendship is a theme that is very sweet, and I don't know, do you have something to say about it?
Well, I mean, certainly for Vin's character, it's arguably the central theme, learning to trust. And not even just trust, but like, what does trusting in someone looks like? Well, it looks like friendship, it looks like loyalty, it looks like self-sacrifice. But then you have, Sazed's character, who's
very good.
He's like, well, what about wisdom and prudence? And, so you've got, again, even within that situation, it's not just like, oh yeah, run in and die for your friends every opportunity you get. Like, Sanderson doesn't set that forward. And so it leaves Vin in a very difficult situation where she doesn't know when to prioritize herself or her friends or the mission, which are all put forward as good things in and of themselves. And so maybe theme is the wrong word, but the way that those are brought together in her character, and like how do we, it's almost more like an ethic. It's like, how do you actually do that? How do you maintain your loyalty while being wise and prudent and, not running into Credit Shaw again for the 5th time or whatever. It's like, it's a very interesting dynamic.
And the thing with Mare and Kelsier.
Yes.
Like, how can you keep loving someone that has hurt you so much? And all my girls out there that have been broken up with, like, that you can still love someone that really broke you. Not really, like, I would have not understood that if I wouldn't have gone through a relationship and then be like, at the beginning, after the breakup, being like, how can I still love this person that actually hurt me so much? And it's because there's something deeper than just, there's a loyalty on the love that you have for that person, deeper than what they did to you. And it's okay, you don't have to be a dumb, don't go back with the guy you broke up with if he was a bad person. That's not what we're saying here. It's just like, it was so deep. It would be easy to be like, oh no, yeah, now I hate Mare because I think she was unloyal to me and she was the one who made me go to this place and be caught. But no, like, maybe he wanted to, but he couldn't. So it just gave depth to the character and depth to that reality of friendship of, like, sometimes you just love people that don't deserve to be loved. Yeah. So that's really sweet.
I love the relationship between Vin and Sazed because I think that's my favorite.
They're so sweet.
It's so sweet. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I think there's something really special about, like, Sazed's quiet kind of care for Vin that is, like, also a very, like, underrated thing in, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That I see in, like, friendships. I feel like I hear a lot of people asking for, like, verbal affirmation in a particular way from friends and being like, if you can't give me this, you're absolutely not my friend in no way, shape, or form. Yes. And I think friendships don't actually work like that. I think there is a time and a place to be like, okay, are we actually friends? You know what I mean? Like, kind of a thing. Like, you should consider those things. But I think more people, like, are on the track of, like, cutting people out of their life and on the track of, like, giving up on friendships. And so, like, seeing a staying friendship where there's two characters who are, like, dissimilar, have different backgrounds in some ways, you know what I mean? And, like, also, like, different stages of life, different personalities. Like, Vin is a very, like, untrusting, like, young, kind of more snappy girl, you know what I mean? And Sazed is, like, a more steady, even keel, long game thinker, you know what I mean? Long-term thinker. And so, like, watching them interact is interesting because like, they demonstrate different ways of caring for each other, and then, like, seeing them learn how to read that from one another, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just really sweet and wonderful.
One of my favorite parts of that dynamic is how Sazed has to teach Vin that service and sacrifice isn't, like, counterintuitive or doesn't go against friendship or like trust. There's a couple of moments where, like, early on, Kelsier goes off to speak with Renault and she's like, oh, he doesn't trust me. Like, any sort of distance is seen as, like, dangerous. And says it's like, no, there's just certain things that are appropriate for them to speak about which aren't appropriate for you. And he displays that, and there's another moment where she basically asks him, like, why do you still serve? Like, you're part of the crew, you're an equal, so why do you take on that role? And I think a part of it, he says, is, like, his upbringing, how he's trained. But there's it's almost tongue-in-cheek, because we know he's a rebel. And Sazed acts all reserved. Well, this man has strong principles.
Yeah. No,
but he chooses to serve his friends.
Yeah.
And it makes it appear to the, to the ignorant as like a demeaning thing, but he doesn't see it that way. And I think that's really, like, there's a nobility there that Sanderson brings out of Sazed.
Yeah, and Sazed is like one of the most loved characters in this whole series, probably unanimously by like most people who read the series. You know what I mean? Like, true. And I think it's partially because of that, because like there's something to like self-sacrifice, like the dying to the self to serve someone that you care, that you love.
Remarkable in his trust.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a very different kind of self-sacrifice than what Kelsier does.
Yeah. Right? And Kelsier, that's another thing, is like, when we were talking about foils, I'm sorry to go into this, but if you put Sazed and Vin against Vin and Kelsier, two very different pictures of friendship, but both work in their unique ways, but there is an element to which, like, Kelsier, it, like, takes a lot for him to get to the point where he can, like, care about Vin in the way that Sazed naturally does, I feel like. I feel like Kelsier does care about Vin, but I feel like he's so worked up inside about his, like, revenge. Yeah. And not that Kelsier isn't caring. I just mean, like, he's so worked up in his revenge at the first part. That was what was contrasting for me.
I just feel like the word wouldn't be, like, as you said, like, not caring for her, but more like, Sazed is more focused on people. Yeah. So he's very slow. You see these people like I am more like let's do this. Let's solve the problem and move on. And there's other people that are just more tender and more like they're realizing of maybe Natalie, my roommate, is more like that. She will help to solve the problems, but it's more like a person that is more into the people and realizes of notices more stuff that other people don't, because they are more focused on life and the problems around them. So Kelsier is more everywhere, but Sazed is able to, in the midst of a bunch of problems, also like lower and slow down and pay attention to the person in front of him. So Sazed is amazing.
And that characteristic saves Vin's life, right? Yeah. It's not like there's no moment where that is viewed as, well, when Sazed saves Vin in Credit Shaw the second time after Kelsier's death, he wants to leave Elend because he's so focused on Vin. He's like, great, a distraction, let's get out of here. Like, we can't help him. The wise, I think he says, like, wisdom would say, like, we should leave or something like that.
But Vin is his girl. Elend is not, so...
Yeah, but so it's interesting how even in that moment there's, like, the results of that, if Vin had left, the Lord Ruler would have won. Like, it would have been catastrophic. So Sanderson sets up that even that, which is the noble character of Sazed, isn't perfect. It's like there are weaknesses.
There are little weaknesses.
Yeah. I don't see like a huge like, oh, Kelsier is a bad friend and Sazed is a good friend, and neither of them being like Kelsier is super flawed and Sazed is like perfect. I don't see that. But
it's just different.
Yeah, it's just like two very different friendships, and I'm intrigued by it. Like, it just feels real. You know what I mean?
And that's how Vin becomes like a woman. She watches both of these and experiences very different kinds of care. Like the mentor to the friend to the father to the, teacher, friend to...
I don't know, everything.
Kind of another
I know where that's
almost.
going.
Father mentor.
Yeah, but also just like, I don't know, friend. You know what I mean? Like, I do think in some ways, like, Sazed just stays her friend. And, well, maybe not stays his friend, but her friend, but becomes her friend more so.
Or she learns to recognize his friendship.
Yeah.
And actually, like, oh, that's how he's expressed, like, he's
and, like,
caring for me.
Vin finally figures out how to care for Sazed. You know what I mean? Like, she actually cares about him, and, like, that goes into book 2.
Yes. We have to stop now because there's so much to talk